Lukashenko just won't calm down. The threat of an invasion from Belarus against Ukraine is steadily increasing. Putin is systematically taking control of the Belarusian army. What could an attempt by the occupiers to cross the Belarusian-Ukrainian border mean for the mustachioed Grigorik and, above all, for the people of his country? Let me explain now. Large-scale nuclear exercises began across Russia on May 19th. More than 60,000 military personnel are involved, including the strategic missile forces, the Northern and Pacific fleets, and long-range aviation. Belarus is also participating in the nuclear exercises.
In order to enhance the readiness of the armed forces to use modern means of destruction, including special munitions, under the leadership of the Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces and First Deputy Minister of Defense of the Republic of Belarus, a training exercise has begun for military units responsible for the operational use of nuclear weapons and nuclear support. The training is a scheduled preparation event within the framework of the Union State, is not directed against third countries, and does not pose a threat to security in the region. Ministry of Defense of the Republic of Belarus.
Before the full-scale invasion, exercises were also conducted on the territory of Belarus, and similar statements were made by the local Ministry of Defense. Everyone remembers well where the invasion began. The Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs immediately responded to the start of the exercises.
The deployment of Russian tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus and the joint nuclear exercises of the two dictatorships are an unprecedented challenge to the architecture of global security. The militarization of Belarus not only undermines trust in international law, but also finally turns Minsk into an accomplice in Russia's nuclear blackmail. The brazenness of Moscow and Minsk, who have deliberately crossed all red lines, cannot go unanswered and must be met with a firm, unified response and systematic containment of both regimes by the Euro-Atlantic community and the entire world. Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Russian tactical nuclear weapons were stationed on the territory of Belarus in mid-2023. And since then, the Russian Federation has increasingly issued threats regarding the use of these weapons and conducted various military exercises. This is one of the elements of intimidation, not only against Ukraine, but against all of Europe.
In the nation of Belarus, well, at least as far as these current reports can be trusted, and we must acknowledge there are no other sources available, a full division of Iskander missile systems equipped with nuclear warheads has reportedly been deployed. In addition to these ground forces, 10 specialized aircraft capable of carrying tactical payloads, specifically designed for carrying nuclear gravity bombs, have also been stationed there. The Russian government in Moscow is currently exerting significant pressure on Minsk so that the Belarusian armed forces would take a direct and active role in the war against Ukraine. In other words, that they would directly attack Ukrainian territory.
Shortly before the nuclear exercises, Belarus closed its forests in 19 border districts of the country to visitors. Most of the closed districts are located along the borders with Ukraine, Poland, and Lithuania. One of the most important targets for an invasion could be the Rivne nuclear power plant. Putin does not have enough forces of his own, so he is trying to draw the Belarusian army into the war against Ukraine. But Lukashenko understands everything perfectly well.
Lukashenko, as I understand it, absolutely does not want this. He is fully and completely aware of the reality that, first of all, any potential attempt to launch a full-scale invasion of Ukraine would mean the total and immediate destruction of the entirety of the Belarusian army.
All the roads on the border with Belarus from the Ukrainian side have long been mined and are well covered by gunfire. So for Lukashenko's army, it's a one-way ticket. Exercises and threats are more a psychological tactic than real action. The Ukrainian armed forces are currently monitoring all movements of Russian and Belarusian troops, so there is no reason to panic.
But despite the fact that there are currently not many Russian troops on the territory of Belarus, at any moment Russia can use this platform by transferring additional forces there. There is already a certain amount of blackmail going on regarding the presence of nuclear weapons on Belarusian territory. Of course, the threats from Belarus are real and we must be prepared for any developments.
Potentially, the Russian Federation could resort to a provocation in northern Ukraine and drag the Belarusian army into this situation in order to force Ukrainian troops to be redeployed there. But for this, the aggressor needs a grouping and resources which are currently lacking. And now let's move to the long-suffering Pokrovsk direction of the front. The bloody rampage of the enemy's army continues here as well. In the Pokrovsk direction, the occupiers tried to advance 24 times near the settlements of Novoye Shakhovo, Zatishok, Nikonorovka, Rodinskoye, Toretskoye, Novo-Alexandrovka, Grishino, Kotlino, Kamenka, Sergeyevka, Udakhnoye, Molodetskoye, and Novopavlovka. One significant battle is still ongoing. China is now openly fighting against Ukraine. Evidence has emerged that several hundred Chinese soldiers are already fighting on the side of the occupiers. And the military forces of Vladimir Putin are being trained in China in sophisticated military skills, especially in handling UAVs. More exclusive details are available in the following report by my colleagues.
China has secretly trained hundreds of Russian occupiers for the ongoing war.
As is tradition, we dedicate this to one of the integral components of the comprehensive partnership.
European intelligence reports indicate that we are talking about a total of roughly 200 servicemen who underwent training in China towards the very end of 2025.
Based on information provided by a total of 3 European intelligence agencies and documents carefully examined by Reuters,
towards the end of last year, the Chinese armed forces secretly provided training for approximately 200 Russian servicemen on Chinese territory. And some of them later returned to actively participate in combat operations in Ukraine.
This information indicates a deeper involvement of China in the conflict. As the publication writes, the training took place at military facilities in Beijing and Nanjing. But Russia, of course, still denies this.
Complete nonsense. We have nothing to learn from our Chinese comrades. They themselves are very eager to learn from us.
This document also mentions the training of Chinese military personnel at Russian training grounds. The primary focus was on the use of drones, countering drones, sophisticated electronic warfare, army aviation, and the tactical operations of armored units. And the program itself was formalized by a Russian-Chinese agreement signed in the summer of 25.
The Russians, much like us, possess an incredibly vast amount of specialized expertise in conducting modern warfare. This is a truly formidable and significant strategic asset. And the Chinese, on the other hand, it is important to note that the Chinese can share advanced technologies for producing various types of sophisticated weapons, where weapons, equipment, and a whole lot of other things are concerned, where the Russians have unfortunately and quite significantly fallen behind the curve.
This was mutually beneficial since hundreds of Chinese military personnel were supposed to undergo training in Russia. The mutual agreement also prohibited any mention of the visits in the media and the sharing of information with third parties.
According to the report, Chinese military officers traveled to Russia for training. The Chinese military has not had any actual combat experience since 1979, when they fought a brief border conflict against Vietnam. In contrast, Russia has gained significant combat experience thanks to the ongoing war in Ukraine and other conflicts. China is now actively preparing for a potential military conflict in East Asia, specifically regarding the situation in Taiwan.
Some of the military personnel have already been identified among Russian drone operators in occupied Crimea and the Zaporizhzhia region.
Among the military trained in China, there were also representatives of Rubicon, this specialized Russian elite drone unit, whose presence often exerts a significant influence over the course of events in the frontline regions of Ukraine.
And no matter how much Beijing traditionally claims a neutral position that China advocates for a peaceful resolution to the war, in practice, the reality is quite the opposite.
The relationship between Putin and Xi Jinping has been close for many years. Regarding their cooperation within the economic sphere, their trade now has reached a total of about $240 billion. They are also getting closer in the military sphere. China supplies Russia with dual-use equipment for the needs of the war against Ukraine. But this latest report, if it is to be believed, and of course we need to be cautious because it is still based on leaks, China is now directly trading with Russian military personnel.
The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that this did not happen. And once again, the old tunes started playing. The country maintains an objective position and asks not to fuel confrontation.
In the current global landscape, Russia has effectively become one of those strategic assets that these two major world players are constantly trying to utilize in their ongoing struggle for dominance against each other. When you look at the situation by and large, it becomes clear that neither the United States nor the People's Republic of China truly needs a strong or independent Russia to emerge on the world stage. Both sides only need it as a raw materials appendage. And it is for this raw materials appendage that they are competing.
But in reality, China is helping the Russians in every possible way through barter.
This could be official military cooperation. It's actually quite comparable to what North Korea did with Russia, when North Korea deployed a force of more than 10,000 military personnel to the Kursk region. This is a new level of interstate cooperation. However, officially there have been no Chinese troops on the front lines in Ukraine.
After Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Moscow and Beijing significantly intensified their military cooperation.
Of course, the Chinese government will categorically deny these allegations. The Chinese government claims that it is not actively participating in the war in any direct military capacity. But if we are to believe this report, in reality, it is involved and is actively assisting the Russians to master new technologies that China itself provides.
China officially declares its neutrality, but in reality, it provides economic, diplomatic, and technological support to Russia in the war against Ukraine.
It was a successful, productive, and eventful collaboration.
During Putin's last visit to Beijing, the countries signed about 40 documents, but it is unknown how many of them were classified. What other forms of cooperation could they have offered each other? And exactly how many other hidden secrets do Xi Jinping and his loyal Russian subordinate have?